Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I am Andres Villalba, I am a sales engineer at Sencha, and today I will be guiding you through the mobile applications webinar. We will be creating an Ext JS application and using Apache Cordova to turn this web application into a mobile application. We'll be following several steps and we will be doing this with just the basic template and then with a real application, well, with something we're gonna build today. So these are the steps that we should usually follow. We need to create our application. We need to check that there are no errors in it. Even warnings might be an issue when we try to build the application for Cordova. So we have to make sure that everything is working as perfect as we can. So we create our application, we build it for production. We use Apache Cordova to turn this application into a mobile app. Then we're gonna use an emulator to test our APK. If I had here an Android phone, I could take this APK and test it on my phone. Or we could also create an iOS application. I'm not going to be doing that today, but the steps will be more or less the same. Okay, before we start, I would like to tell you a little bit about Sencha Ext JS. If you're here, I'm guessing you already know a little bit about it, but still, I'm just gonna give you a brief introduction. Sencha Ext JS is a robust front-end framework. It has been in the market for years, even more than its competitors. It has more than 140 components, everything from grids, charts, forms, fields, and many other different options like windows and panels. It is really easy to use. It's based on JavaScript. It's actually built on JavaScript. So if you know how to code on it, you will be able to easily code with Sencha JS. It is object-oriented and it uses MVC and MVVM architectures on its projects. So that makes it a lot more secure. It makes it a lot more maintainable, and all those years that it has been in the market and it has been used by developers makes it a lot more stable than other solutions. And about Apache Cordova, it is a tool that allows you to take any web application and turn it into a mobile application. So something that it's going to help you because now you can do multi-platform development with your web apps and you can export those into Android, iOS, or Windows. By turning your applications into native applications, you can use specific hardware like GPS, cameras, storage devices, or even sensors. Something to take in mind, even though you get all those benefits, it's really web view based. So basically the applications are being executed inside a web view and it will run the app as a mix of web and native code. While it is quite easy to turn your web application into a mobile application, the first time you do it, it's gonna be a little bit confusing. Plus, you need to install a few things. For example, we need to create an Next.js application. So we're gonna need Sencha command, we're gonna need the Ext.js SDK, or at least a trial version. Then we're gonna need the Java SDK. In this case, we're gonna need version 17. This requirement is from Cordova, not from Ext.js. So make sure if you download the JDK or Java SDK, download version 17. You're also gonna need Gradle, you're gonna need Cordova, and finally you're gonna need an emulator. In this case, we're gonna be using Android Studio for that. Let me show you how to get everything. And let's start with Sencha Ext JS. So we go to Sencha's website. You can see that there's a lot of options here. It explains everything that it has, all the applications that come with XJS. However, if you want to get the trial, just go to free trial, fill in the form on the right, and you will get a command line tool to get your application running. And you will have 1 month, 30 days to be exact, to create your application. However, if you are a paying customer and you have a license, you can go into the support panel and there you need to download your SDK and you also need to download Sencha command. Okay, we're gonna need those two. And once you download the SDK, put it in a folder that makes sense to you. Could be right on the root. You can create a folder called XJS and put it there, somewhere that it's easy to locate. Sencha command, you need to install it. So just follow through the instructions and that's it. For Android Studio, you need to go into their website and download it, install it, just like you would any other application. And once you get to this window over here, we're gonna need to customize a few things. So let's go ahead and do it right now. So first, I would go into more actions, SDK manager, and we're gonna change a few things here. I have already done this, but in case you haven't done it, you must do it. So first, I'm gonna make sure that I'm using the Android version that I need. In this case, I check the Android 13 version, but it could be 16, 15, or any version that you feel comfortable with. And then I'm gonna go into SDK tools, and here I'm gonna click on Show Package Details. And same deal, I'm gonna check the version that I need. In this case, I'm gonna be using version 34. And also I'm gonna be looking for Android command line. So it should be down here. I'm gonna just check the box for the latest one. Once we get to this point, we also need to add a few environment variables. I'm gonna get the Android SDK location from here, and I'm gonna copy that URL and put it inside my environmental variables. I apologize, my OS is in Spanish, but it's the same idea. And here I'm gonna add this variable, Android Home. So I would click on New, and I will call that Android Home, and I'm gonna paste that SDK, okay? And then I need to install a few more things. I didn't mention it at the beginning. I should have npm installed because that would be the easiest way to install Cordova. Okay, for the Java SDK, I would just search for it online, and I would go to the Oracle website. And down here, what I would look for is the version that I need. So like I said before, Cordova asked for version 17. So that's the one I'm getting. And I just got the MSI installer, but you can get the version that you need depending on your OS. And then we also need to add a new environment variable. And for that, I would also go like once again to the environment variables window. I would create this entry here. So basically just Java Home, and make sure it points to your JDK folder. And I'm gonna take the time also to tell you, I forgot on the previous step, to also make sure that apart from Android Home, to also add Android SDK root. Cordova is going to look for this one, and basically they have the same value, those two variables. I would also go into path, and here make sure that you have these variables down here, okay? These values. We're gonna have to add Gradle, which I will do in the next step, and then Java Home bin, Android SDK root, platform tools. You need all of those to make it work. And finally, for Gradle, I would go to their website and I will just follow these steps that they have here. Okay, there are several ways to do it. What I actually did is that I downloaded the binary only and I followed the steps for Windows users. Okay, and then what I did once again is go into environment variables, and inside the path variable, I also added what I mentioned a few minutes ago, the Gradle bin folder. And now that we have that, all we are missing is just Cordova installation. And that one is the easy one. So basically, I'm just gonna create a folder where I'm going to be working on. So on my D drive, I have a folder called Sencha Apps. I'm gonna create a Cordova folder. This is where I'm gonna be creating all my projects. And inside of it, I'm gonna create my original Ext JS project. Whatever I create is gonna be here. That's my project. If I was using something different from Ext JS, this is where I would save my actual source code for that project. And then I am also going to create a different folder for my actual application. So I'm just gonna call that mobile app. I'm gonna open that folder, I'm gonna right click on it, and I'm gonna open a PowerShell window there. And now I'm going to install Cordova. I have already done this. So let me just show it to you, although I'm not going to install it again. All I would do is npm install Cordova. Okay, that's going to take a few minutes. It's going to download it and install it into your system. Once we have that, I'm going to create my application. Okay, I could put it right inside this folder, but I'm gonna let it create a subfolder. That way, if we do several examples during this webinar, we're gonna have several folders in it, okay? One for each project. So I'm just gonna say Cordova, create, and I'm gonna call this my app. Might take a few minutes. We gotta wait it out. But once this is done, then we can add the Android platform. So it's ready now. I'm just gonna go inside my app folder, and inside of it, I'm just gonna say Cordova platform add Android. Okay. If I had iOS, of course, I would add that platform too. Okay, it is ready now. If we check our folder structure, we can see that it created all these files over here. We have a root folder, and we have our platforms, we have the node modules, and a few other files. Later on, we're gonna check a few of those to change some details about our application, okay? Now that we have our mobile application ready, I'm gonna go outside, and inside XJS, I'm going to create my first XJS application. And to create this application, what I'm going to be doing is just creating a basic template. Like I said, you can get XJS as a trial, or you can get it from the support panel if you have a valid license. So if I wanted to create an empty application, I would use this command over here. This one will have nothing inside of it, only the SDK. So it's not the best idea to start with this one because you need to know a little bit more about XJS. However, this is completely empty so that you can create whatever you need or whatever you want. If you want to start from a template, there are several templates in XJS, but the most basic one you can create is with this command over here. If you have the trial edition, instead you need to use this other command down here. The difference is with the trial edition, you don't have the SDK, so you use a different line for that, which will download the SDK for your project. So if I use this command, it's really simple. It's just sencha-sdk. The route or URL, the folder where your SDK is saved. Remember that I told you save it in somewhere simple, maybe in your root, and just call it XJS. Then generate app dash dash and the toolkit. Sencha has two different toolkits, the modern toolkit and the classic one. You can use either one for this example. However, the classic toolkit is optimized for desktop devices, and the modern toolkit is optimized for mobile devices. And then give it a name, and then you can specify the folder where it's going to be saved. So I am here, I'm gonna right click, and I'm going to open a PowerShell window there. Okay, I need a command line. And this is what I'm going to be using. So I'm just gonna say sencha-sdk. I'm going to specify where the SDK is saved. In my case, I did not follow my advice. I don't have it in a short folder. Anyways, it works. Then I'm just gonna say generate app dash dash modern. I'm gonna give it a name. I'm just gonna call it my app. And I can put it in the same folder or I can create a new one. For now, I'm just gonna put it in the same folder. This is going to take a little while because it's going to grab the required files for this application, and that takes some time. In the meantime, let's sum up what we have been doing. We installed everything we needed. That's the hardest part to do. However, once we have that, you're gonna see that it's quite easy to do once we do this second example. Because right now, all I'm going to do is take this basic example and put it as in an APK. So once we get to the second example, you'll see that everything is a lot more simple. Okay, it didn't take that long. So right now, this is what we have. The project has been created. Also, whenever we create an Next.js project, it is a good idea to refresh it and build for development. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So all I do is sencha app refresh. This will read from its manifest and get all the dependencies and everything it needs to create the application. And then I'm going to do a Sencha app build for development. This will create the development environment. This will make it easier to test. If you have your own domain or you have IIS and you want to create a local domain, you can do it. And you can just point to the folder of your application and it will work just fine. However, if we want to take the application to Cordova or just publish it on the web, then we need to also build for production. But I usually do that at the end. However, since we're creating the first example, I'm going to be doing it after this finishes. So also something to take in mind is usually when we are creating and if we want Sencha to create a web server for you, you can also use Sencha App Watch. This is optional for now. You can use it and it will create a web server for you. So basically, let's give it a few seconds. And it's telling me that it's here. Okay, so I'm just gonna open that URL. And let me show you the application running on just a browser window. This is what we have. It's just a basic application that has a grid, fully functional grid that you can sort, you can move the columns around, you can group by a field, you can look at other sections which are basically empty. And that's just the basic application. However, if we want to test it out, we can go into our folder and we can just open the index file. And you'll basically get the same thing. Okay, now that we have it, let's actually build it for production. So I'm just gonna say Sencha app build production. Sencha has several environments. I already showed you the development one. I'm showing you the production one. And there's also a testing environment. And you can create your own by going to the manifest file, something that it's a little bit more advanced. And we're not gonna be talking about that today. Okay, it's done now. So let's do just what I said. Okay, so here I have my Cordova application. Remember, this is what I created with Cordova. I said there's that web root folder. I'm gonna take everything that is there out, and here's my production application. I'm gonna get all those files, copy and paste. I forgot to mention, if there's an error, your application might not run over here. So let's test it out and see that the production application is still working. And as you can see, it is working, okay? And now that we have our application here, let's move on and let's use Cordova to actually build and package the application. And for that, I'm just gonna go back to PowerShell, okay? And let's clear this window. So I'm going to go into mobile app, my app, and this is the root. This is where I have to be located, okay? And here I'm just gonna say Cordova build Android. If it throws an error, it can be several things. It could be that you don't have everything installed, that you don't have the correct version of the Android SDK, that you don't have the correct version of Java SDK, or it could also be that you didn't install the Android version of Cordova, the Android platform. Okay, so just make sure that everything is there. I can tell you that the first time I tried this, I used the incorrect version of Java SDK, and it was throwing me an error and not telling me what it was. So just make sure that you have the correct one, okay? Okay, and now that it is done, let's check where that file is. So that's under Platforms, Android, App, Build, Outputs, APK. Okay, it's a little bit hidden, but it's here. So this application is the one that we're gonna be taking into our emulator and see if it's working. Okay, now let's open the emulator on the right. Let's go to the device manager. And since I already have one, I'm just gonna start it. But if you don't, you need to add your device. Also, if you have a device connected to your computer, you can emulate it inside of it. Okay, it's gonna take a few seconds to get it to run. Once it is running, then we can just grab the APK and put it there. Let me take it there, drop it off. It's gonna take also a few seconds. Once it is installed, it might appear down here, but if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. Let's just click and drag. And here it is. As you can see, it has a generic icon and a generic title. We can change that. But for now, let's test our application. And it's going to be the same application. It might look a little bit slow, but that's my computer emulating an Android phone. And here it is. So you can see the same things work. Okay, we can sort by any column. We can go into all the other options, and it's working just fine. Okay, so now let's see what we can do with that icon and with that title. To change it, all I'm going to do is open the config.xml, and as you can see, here's the name of the application. So I'm just gonna say Sencha example, and then I'm gonna give it a description. Our first example. Of course, I can put my email here and whatever I may need. Let's say this is me. Okay, and finally, if I want to add my own icon, I'm gonna add a new property over here. I'm gonna say platform name. In this case, I am creating an Android platform, and I'm gonna put the icon there. While we were looking at a different option, I took the time to put this folder over here. So I have two different icons there. They're not pretty, it's just a basic example. So I'm just gonna specify that folder there. Resources, images, and let's say icon one. This will have a double border, but I don't care right now. Let's just leave it like that. And let's build the application once again. So as you know, as we already said, it's going to be Cordova build Android. Once again, that's going to take a few minutes, but once it's done, I will take it back to the emulator and see how it's working. Okay, now that it has been created, let's open the emulator and I'm just going to install it again. So just gonna go into Android app build outputs APK and put it back there. So you can see it replaced what I had. It has a new icon. It's just basically a Sencha icon. It's just really, really small, but the application is the same. Okay, and this is the basic idea, and this is all you need to know to take your application. And this is using the tools by yourself, not actually using Sencha. If you want to use Sencha, you can also check our documentation and you can take your application by using Cordova. So let's check our docs and let's look for Cordova over here. And as you can see, there are a lot of instructions. You can follow all these instructions that you have over here. It goes through the same idea. It tells you about config.xml. It tells you how to set it up. You can actually go into your JSON file and add a few more things to make it easier to export to Cordova. However, I wanted to show a more general way to do it. Okay, so I didn't go through these steps that you're seeing here. I did a different way, but getting the same result. So what we're gonna be doing next is just creating another example, something a little bit different than this. I'm just going to show you how to create a simple rock, paper, scissors game. Since this is an application, I think a game is fitting. And I'm going to take that game and put it inside our application. Okay, and let's just do that. Okay, so let's go back to my folder. I'm gonna create a new application folder. I'm gonna call this app rock, paper, scissors. And inside of it, I'm going to create my new application. So this time I'm going to create an empty application. So I'm gonna right click, open a PowerShell window, and I'm just going to run that command over there, sencha app init -e. I'm gonna specify the SDK URL, and I'm gonna create a modern app. I'm gonna give it a name. Let's say app rock, paper, scissors. While the application is being created, I'm also gonna go into my mobile app folder, okay, and I'm going to create that other application that I need for my mobile version. So as you know, I'm just gonna open the PowerShell window here, and basically I'm just gonna tell it to create my Cordova application. So Cordova, create, and I'm gonna say app, rock, paper, scissors. Let's say mobile just to make a difference from the original one. Once it's created, I'm just gonna enter that folder. And over here, I'm going to add the platform as you know. And once this is done, I'm gonna go into Microsoft Code and I'm gonna start working on my project, creating my little application game. Okay, so let's open Microsoft Code and let's open that new project folder that we have. Of course, I'm talking about the XJS folder, not the Cordova one. So Sencha apps, Cordova, and app RPS. Okay, it's gonna take a little while to create everything, but this is the folder I'm going to be working on. Okay, so our XJS app has been created. Since this is an empty project, it doesn't have much. It has a bunch of basic JSON configuration files and some basic JavaScript. It has the SDK and it has a build folder, but that's it. If we want to create an application from scratch, we need to create a few more folders. I'm gonna create the app folder. This is usually where we save everything that our project needs, our views, our data stores, our models, everything should go here. Okay, although I'm just going to be using view for now, I'm just showing you where everything should be. Anyways, I'm gonna create a game view. This is gonna be just a basic panel, and this panel I'm just gonna get from my notes, which I have over here, just to be a little bit faster. So basically, this is what I have. And as you can see, I am creating a new view. I'm calling it a view game view. This matches the name of my folders. Okay. And I'm gonna extend from a basic panel and I'm gonna give it a next type of game view. Okay. And then I'm gonna go into my app and there what I'm going to do is change a few more things. For example, I don't need the message box. That's actually included within my basic project, so I don't need to require it. Over here, instead, I'm going to include everything from my app, and I'm going to be a little bit more specific. I'm also going to include my game view. The basic example only opens a basic message box. I'm going to get rid of that, and instead, I'm going to create a viewport. It's just going to create a panel with a central layout, a gray color, and then I'm gonna add one item, which is basically that game view that I have created before. This is not exactly how I'm going to do it at the end, but I just wanted to show you something simple before I actually start with the whole game. Okay, so I'm gonna give that game view a width and a height, and I'm also give it a title for now. So let's just say rock, paper, scissors. Now, if I want to test this, remember that I told you before, I need to refresh and build my application. If there's a mistake in my code, this is gonna throw an error. And I have to only do this at the beginning and when I build my production version. So don't think that every time you test, you have to do this. And after that, I'm just gonna build for development. Also, I can also run, like I mentioned before, Sencha Watch to test my application and have a little web server for testing. But for now, I'm just gonna say build development. If there's an error, it's also going to create a log file over here, and it's here. This is what I have, just a basic window in the center of the screen and some gray background. Okay, if I don't want it to work this way, I could have also changed the layout to fit and just get rid of those measurements there. We do that and test again. Now my application measures the whole width and height of the browser window. So for now, I'm just gonna leave it like this, and that's how I'm gonna take it into Cordova. So let's continue with the rest of the application. Now let's add what we're missing for the application. So basically, I'm just gonna be adding everything that my view needs. Okay, so let's go into that game view and let's do some extra things. So this game view can also have its own layout. Basically, I'm just gonna say that the layout it's VBox and the align is going to be stretch. This way, every component that I add will measure the whole available width. After that, I'm just gonna create a toolbar. Whenever I use the vbar property, I'm creating a button toolbar, okay? And then I'm just gonna create all the buttons that I need. The first one is going to be called rock. I'm gonna put an icon there and I'm gonna give it a flex value. The flex value is gonna distribute everything evenly. And I'm gonna use a font awesome icon, which is actually the hand gesture of a rock. And I'm going to give it a handler. And this handler, it's just gonna call play game. There isn't much to explain here. And I'm gonna add two more buttons, of course, rock, paper, and scissors. Okay, so same idea for the icons. Okay, and now I have everything that I need. I could have called a different handler. This is a method that it's going to be on the views controller, but also I can just leave it like this and check the text of the button to know which button was pressed. Okay, then I'm going to create the actual contents of the panel. So I'm just gonna say items. This is also going to be an array of objects. And here I'm gonna add a few options. The first one, it's going to be a panel that has what the computer selected. The second one is a panel that has what the user selected. I'm gonna give it an item ID. This will help me out to select the object later on. I'm just gonna say CPU board. And then I'm gonna give it a title. This is what the CPU played. Then I'm gonna do the same for the player. So let's say player board, and here I'm just gonna say player. Then what I'm gonna be doing next, it's just expressing the result on a different panel. Okay, so basically the same idea. Gonna give it an item ID. I'm just gonna call it scoreboard. Let's say here score. And then I'm just going to put here the actual result. Okay, so right now there's no way to know that this is actually a panel. So I can add a few more options at the beginning. For example, I can say that this is a panel. It's also divided evenly, and it has a body padding of 16 pixels. And then I can put the same thing over here, and then the same thing on the scoreboard. But if I do that and I want to change something, I will have to update all of them. So instead, I'm just gonna use the default property, and I'm gonna specify all those three properties that are shared between all three panels, okay? So right now what we should have is three panels and three buttons, okay? Let's test it out. Let's see how this is looking. And this is all I have right now. A button that says rock, a button that says paper, another one that says scissors, the options we have, and the title of the application. So what should happen is if I click on rock, I should get a rock over here, and then the CPU should also come with its own option. And then down here it should tell me who won. Okay, now let's make the game work. So I'm gonna create a controller. Controller is where all our business logic for the game view resides. And basically all I have to do there is create the methods that are going to process what we have. I'm just gonna say something like this. I'm creating a game controller. Notice that once again it's app view game controller. It's gonna extend from Ext app view controller, and then I'm gonna give it an alias. This alias is kind of like the Ext type, but for a controller. What I'm going to do inside the game view, I'm gonna call this controller over here. I'm just gonna say controller. I'm gonna put it there. And to make it work in production, I should also say requires and have an array. And this value over here should be the name of the controller class. Okay, this way, whenever somebody clicks on play game is gonna be searched for inside the controller. So here I'm just gonna say play game function, okay, and that's where the game logic will happen. Over here, I'm gonna add the three options that I have. So options equals, and as you know, for this game, I have rock, paper, and scissors. Okay, and now I'm going to select whatever the user selected, and I'm also going to select what the CPU selected. So let's say CPU selection, and what I'm going to do is select from options a random option. So I'm just gonna use XJS here, and basically I'm just gonna say ext number random integer, and here I can say a value between 0 and 2. Of course, I could have just used JavaScript and get the value that way. And then I'm also going to get the player selection. This will come actually from the button. This handler receives the button that it has been clicked on, so it will receive the whole object. And from there, I'm gonna get the text of the button. This is just a little trick. If I had more time, I would do it some other way. And then I'm gonna turn this text into lowercase. So basically, if somebody clicked on rock, it's gonna get the rock text, and it's gonna convert it into lowercase. Same deal with paper and scissors. Okay, now I know what was selected. And then I'm gonna say, who's the winner? And for that, I'm just gonna call another method, which I'm just gonna call compare, where I'm gonna send the CPU selection and the player selection. Okay, let's create that method here. So this is going to be compare. It's going to be a function, and as you know, it will receive the CPU and the player selection. Okay, and here I have a bunch of different ways to check that out. What I'm going to do is check as little as I can. So by default, I'm going to say that the winner is the player. Okay, and now I'm just going to check the CPU and player options are the same. That means that there is no actual winner, it's a tie. So I'm just gonna say tie. Now, what I'm going to check is if the CPU is the winner, otherwise, we already know that the user is the winner. So I actually do not need this else since I already have it over here, but let's just do it for now. Okay, so now let's check what kind of values can we get so that the CPU wins. So let's say that the CPU selects rock. What does the user must have selected so that the CPU wins? And that's scissors, right? Or what happens if the CPU selects scissors? The scissors beat paper. And finally, what happens if the CPU selects paper? That means the player selected rock. If that's the case, who wins? Okay, the CPU would be the winner. Okay, otherwise I would say the user, the player was the winner. But I don't need this since I already said at the beginning the player is the winner. So I can just leave it like that. Of course, I would actually do this in one line, but I just wanted to do it the other way to make it a little bit more readable while I'm explaining. So once I have the winner, I'm just gonna return the actual winner value. And I'm going to be using that to change the scoreboard and show what each one selected. So I already compare. Let's say that I'm going to call a different method to show the score. And over here, what I'm gonna do is the same thing. I'm gonna send the CPU selection, the player selection, and the winner. I'm sending both so that I can show the actual symbol for each one of the players. And let's create that show score method. Okay, so I'm just gonna do it down here, show score. And once again, I'm gonna get the CPU value, the player value, and who won. And of course, I could have everything in one method. I just wanted to do it this way. And over here, I'm gonna get the view. The way I get the view from the controller is pretty easy. I just say this, get view. So basically this is connecting to the view and I can get it there. And then I'm just going to change the icons for each one and the actual value. So for that, I'm gonna get the panels. If you remember, I gave them a name, an item ID, so I'm just gonna be using this one to recover it. So the way to get the panel by using an item ID is having the view. I can get its direct children just by using get component. So to get the CPU board, I'm just gonna say CPU board equals, and then what I use is the name of the view, get component, and I can use the name of the CPU board. This is the name that I gave it over here, okay? And then I'm gonna do the same for the player board and the scoreboard. So this is going to be player, and this is going to be score, okay? Now I have all three objects, and I can throw whatever I want inside of them. There are plenty of ways to do it. So let's add method down here. Basically, I'm just creating a draw icon method. It's gonna receive the object, meaning the CPU or the player board. It's gonna give me what the player selected, and then if they're the winner or they are not the winner. And inside of it, I'm gonna have all the three icons. I have a different color if that user won or lost. And I'm using just plain HTML to the actual icon. Once again, I'm using font awesome. And then to add the text at the bottom. Okay, so let's say that I want to draw the first icon. So I'm just gonna say this, draw icon. Okay, and the first icon is going to be the CPU icon. So I have CPU board. Okay, I'm gonna send the selection for the CPU, and then I'm just gonna check if the winner is actually the CPU. If you remember, that's what I selected over here, so that should be CPU like that. And then I'm going to do the same, but this time for the player. I'm gonna send the player selection, and I'm also going to check if the winner is the player. Okay, and that's actually going to draw the actual icon. Okay, after that, what I'm going to do is just draw, type the winner on the scoreboard. So that one I'm just gonna do it directly here. So scoreboard, set HTML, and for now I'm just gonna say who won. And as we know, the winner is just here. Inside winner is gonna tell me who won. So for now I'm just gonna add a div tag there, and inside of it I'm just gonna put the actual winner. Okay. Of course we could do a lot more. For now this is all I'm doing there. I'm just gonna say font weight bold. Okay. I don't need to reveal. I can just test as it is. So I'm just gonna check the index file. So I have it over here. Let's test it out. And if everything is fine, I click on a button. Let's say I clicked on rock. This is what I played. Rock beat scissors. It's telling me I won. Once again, now I lost. The CPU won. Let's try paper. I won. Scissors, it's a tie. So it's something really simple. Of course, I could also have centered the actual score. Let's just do that to finish the application. And that's basically all that I'm going to be doing. So I'm just going to say width 100%. I'm going to text align to center. And let's just do the font a little bit bigger. Let's say 18 pixels. And let's test it out. Sorry, I have a mistake there. Let's try it out and see what's going on. So right now, this is all I have. Okay. There are plenty more things that we can do. For example, we can maybe have an actual scoreboard and know how many times the computer has won, how many times the player has won, and things like that. this is just a basic application. Let's see how we can take this into our Cordova application. Okay, so now that it's ready, I will open a terminal window once again. Okay, and I'm going to build the application again, but this time, like we mentioned before, this is going to be a production build. Okay, now that it is done, let's test it one last time. If I go into my folder, I'll go to the build folder, production, my application, and I'll just check that the actual index is working. And as you can see, it is working just fine. Okay, so if you remember what we did before is what we're gonna do again. So let's copy these files. And so if you remember, I have my mobile app folder, and inside of it, I created my RPS model. I'm gonna delete everything there, just like last time, and I'm gonna get everything inside the production folder, copy that, and paste it over here. Okay, now that I have it there, I'll go into my main Cordova folder, and to finish it, let's just build the application once again. And as you know, that is quite simple. All we have to do is basically just say Cordova build Android. And of course, this is creating the debug option. There's a different line if you want to create the production or the release version, which basically is just Cordova build Android dash dash release dash dash package type equals APK. Okay, and now that it is done, once again, we have to locate that debug file that was created. So it should be over here, just like last time. Okay, here it is. This is the one that we were gonna take into our emulator. However, if you want to create your production APK, what you need to do instead is just say Cordova build Android dash dash release dash 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 package type equals APK. And that file should be saved instead inside bundle release and you get an AAB file. Okay, so now let's go into Android Studio and test our application. Okay, so I'm just gonna open my project, which will be saved here. I'm gonna trust it. And once again, I'm gonna do the same thing. Basically, I'm just gonna emulate again. So let's open the device manager. I have it there. I'm just gonna hit on play, wait for the emulator to start, and I'm gonna close the other application. Let's just do it like this. If I wanted to, I can actually uninstall that other application, but it doesn't really matter, which is this one. I can just install the new one. So once again, I'm gonna go into platforms, app, build, outputs, APK, and here it is. Just click and drag over here, give it a few seconds for it to install. I could have given it a different name. Let's open it. And here it is. Once again, everything should be working fine. That's a tie. I won again, I lost. Okay, and there's the application running. Of course, this is just a simple game. Sencha Ext JS is better for business applications. So the best idea is to create a whole business application and just use Cordova to take it into a mobile device. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. I'm sorry, we have run out of time. If you have any questions, please send them to my email and I'll do my best to answer as soon as possible. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us today, and we will see you on the next webinar. Have a great day.